Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Turbo 360. In the previous part of this tutorial series where we set up a blog website, we basically set up the actual project and installed the template as you can see here and deployed on our staging environment on Vertex, which again is just an augmentation of Turbo. It's a sister environment on Turbo which is made compatible for certain templates. So here is my deployed version from the end of the last video. So in this video, we're going to start plugging in the blog data, the actual CMS data for the blog content. And we're going to make sure that this is coming from our API, our dynamic data. So yeah, that's it. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing we want to do is create some of these fake blog posts. And then we're going to make sure our site fetches those blog posts using the built-in API and then renders those here instead of the hard-coded examples that the template came with. So we're going to go ahead and set that up right now. So one of the key advantages of the Vertex platform is it gives you a built-in CMS. So here I am in the management console of my project. So this is what you should be looking at as well. And right here, if you click on CMS, it's going to give you an admin console with two options here for data type, one for project and one for post. And the post corresponds to the blog post schema in our actual code base. You may remember that there are two models in our code base, project and post, and these two data types correspond to that. So if I go ahead and open up our project in the text editor, you will see in the models we also have post and project, the same two as you see in the data types over here. So what we can do, a key advantage is we can add sample data here, using the CMS editor rather than creating our own admin dashboard from scratch. So this saves us a lot of time. So what we can do is just open this up, and I'm going to use the actual content from the original theme. So here is the GitHub repo from the original theme. So go ahead and make sure you have this punched up, and we're going to click on the demo from that, and then we're going to click on the actual live demo. And here we have a couple of sort of sample blog posts. So I'm going to grab the title right here and then input that right here. We're going to leave the link empty. We're going to grab the image from here as well. So go ahead and click on this, and then let's use this image right here, the actual same image. And let's go ahead and drag that onto our desktop. Blog, post, banner, JPEG. So let's go ahead and click the image button and then upload that guy. And then we're going to get some blog sample text content. And we're just going to use lorem ipsum for that. So go to this website over here, loremipsum.net. This is a pretty convenient site for just copying some lorem ipsum text, which is formatted with links and different font styles and stuff like that. And we can just go ahead and paste that in here. And that'll be our first sample blog post. So let's go ahead and create that post, and that should give us a confirmation right here. And now we have one post in our backend plugged in through the CMS. So if we go to our staging deployment, let's go ahead and find that guy right here. So here's my staging deployment. I can check the API endpoint to see if that blog post actually persisted. So I do /API/post like that. And here it is. So here we have one blog post, the same one from before. If we click on the image, we'll see the same image that we uploaded. Everything seems to have worked properly as far as creating this blog post. So that's good. So let's go ahead and create one more just for good measure. So we do add post. Let's go back here and grab the second one, Guide to Becoming Full Stack Developer. I'm going to copy the lorem ipsum text again, since this is just sample text. And rather than use the same image, let's scroll down and grab this little code sample image. Oh no, it's actually a code text. I'm going to take a screenshot. So Command-Shift-4, and let's screenshot that guy just so we have something to work with. So that's going to be our code sample image. Code sample. And let's go ahead and add that as our image for the second blog post. And for now, we'll just go with 2 blog posts for our sample data. So make sure that that shows up over there. Create post, wait for the confirmation, and then go back to your staging URL and reload, and then make sure that you see both posts show up from the API endpoint. And just to show you how the API works, we can grab the unique identifier right here and continue drilling down to unique post requests. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. We can also do filters. So is public. We can do query is public equals no, and we should get both of these. But if we do yes, we'll get none because it doesn't match the query filters, so forth and so on. So the API is already built in for you. It's very quick. It's very easy. It really saves a lot of time. So now we have 2 blog posts in our backend. So let's go ahead and go back to our terminal and run the dev server. And we're still going to see the hard-coded data, right, because we didn't change anything. So we have some work to do in terms of getting our dynamic data showing up. So if we go to localhost 3000, you're going to see the hard-coded data. And that needs to be replaced now with the dynamic data from our backend. So let's go ahead and get working on that. So where does the data come from? Well, you may notice there's a TMP folder right here, which we didn't discuss before. And this is where our local data is stored. Here we have basically a collections file for each model, one for projects and one for post. Now, if we run localhost and we do right here, and then we do API post, we're not going to see anything because our local DB is empty. It's not querying from the staging server. So we can fix that pretty easily. Turn off the server, and we can run a command called npm reset, which is very simple. If I run npm reset, you'll see over here, it just removes those 2. Let's see. Reset. So it should be right there. So let's try it again. npm run reset. My apologies. And it's going to remove those 2 local collections. And so when I run the dev server and query the API again, it's going to default to the staging server data. So you'll see what I mean by that in a second when I run the query one more time. So when I run the query again on localhost, it's going to default to the staging server, which is the same data we had before, that we created from the CMS. And it's going to repopulate, basically rehydrate the local DB with the staging data. So now our data is locally synced up to what's on the server. So you'll see this is on the server. Let's go ahead and just run the basic query here. And this is on localhost, and they are the same exact thing. So that's good. So our localhost data now matches up with the server data. We can do that for project as well, but it's not going to make any difference because there are no projects on the back end. But we can go ahead and rehydrate that too if you want to. So now we have to go to our routes. And you may recall the page route right here is the one that is currently fetching and rendering the home page. So this is where all the business logic on the home page route is being conducted. So there's a lot going on here. Don't worry about this so much for now. We will get to that soon. But what we want to do is see where the render is happening, which is right here, line 26. This is where the home.mustache template is being rendered. So at this juncture, that render is happening too soon. So what we want to do is here, we want to fetch blog posts, and then we want to populate our data object with those blog posts, and then we want to render the home page. So hopefully that makes sense. So if we go up to the top of this file, you'll see that we have the controllers from over here already imported, because when we set up the template, it installed the controllers in our page route by default. So our controllers comes with two properties, one for each resource, one for project and one for post, which simply connects to the controllers, the individual controllers for each resource, which, if you recall, in video 1, I said handles all CRUD operations, the get, the post, the puts, and the deletes. So if I open up the post controller, the blog post controller, you'll see that we have a get command, which is just a get query, the get by ID, which is getting an individual blog post, a post command, which is not the same as a blog post. This means this is a create command, and then a put command, which is an update. So if we want to make a change to a blog post, this is the one that carries that out. And finally, a delete command. So when we want to remove a blog post, this API call will handle that. So what we want to do in the page.js is we want to grab the post controller and run the get query, and that will fetch all the blog posts. So we want to grab the controller const ctr equals controller post. Now this is a class. Okay, this is something that I didn't point out earlier. This is a class, so we want to instantiate an instance of that class. So really we want to do a new post controller like that. We're instantiating instances of a class, and then we want to take the controller and run the get query, and then that's going to return a promise. That returns a promise, as you can see right here, and you can override all of these if you want to. And then, so we want to return that promise, and then we remove the render, home render, and then we extend the promise chain, and these will return blog posts like that. And then in here is where we want to do the render. But before we do, we want to grab the data object and then apply the posts from the completion of the promise, and then add that right here. So we're taking the blog posts and we're adding it to the data under the key post. Now this is going to be an array, and we can confirm this by doing a console log as well, just to make sure that everything we're seeing is what we expect. So if we just run a console log, we can just check the actual data type right now when we run the home page. So go back to localhost and run the home page, and you'll see the blog posts show up over here inside an array, and that's what we expect. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and get rid of that console log. Now that we've confirmed that the blog posts are being successfully fetched and then added to the data here, we can go to our views and our home.mustache. Also, I'm going to get rid of this DS store because this is annoying. If you see this, you don't need it. You can just get rid of it. And let's go ahead and find where those blog posts are being rendered. So the very first one is right here, why every developer should have a blog. So let's go ahead and find that guy. Why every developer should have a blog, right here, which by the way I agree with. So let's zoom out a little bit, and it looks like here to here represents one full blog post preview, and then everything after that is the rest of the hard-coded blog post. So I'm going to grab all the other blog posts afterwards, and I'm going to remove them. because we want to get rid of this hard-coded data and we want to render the dynamic data instead. So let's go ahead and make sure that that looks okay. Got one more, so about remote working. So let's get rid of that guy. Okay, so I left one behind so we can use that as our sort of our base for all the other blog posts. So this is one individual blog post, which we want to render from the data in here, which is an array underneath the key called posts. And the way that you iterate through an array in the Mustache templating engine is simply you do hashtag posts, that's the name of the key that we're iterating through, and the hashtag has to be closed over here like that. And this is essentially a for each loop in the Mustache templating syntax. So you can think of this as a for each loop that you would do from a JavaScript array, and it basically operates the same way. So now we're running through every post in the array, and these posts all have their own individual attributes. If you look at the actual API call, you'll see there's a title, a preview, an image, text, a slug value, so forth and so on. Yeah, here's a slug. So let's go ahead and start using some of those values through the iteration. So here, this is going to be the title. I want to just do a hashtag for the href for now. We will obviously take care of that later. There's also a date string property right here, so we can go ahead and just do that right here. Date string. And we're not going to use these other attributes like number of comments and such. We're not going to actually have comments on this one. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. And then this would be the preview text. So we're going to get rid of that and do preview. And then this is a link, which we're going to do to href, anchor tag, excuse me, for now. And then last but not least is the image. And every blog post attribute entity on the back end does have an image associated with it right here, as you can see. And it's called image. So we can just do image. Now this is a minor detail in the Mustache templating engine, but when you have an image or any kind of URL placeholder, you want to do 3 of these delimiters instead of 2. It's actually okay if you still do 2, it's not going to break anything, but 3 is a little bit more appropriate in these scenarios. So let's go ahead and run that and let's see what we get. So don't forget, we have 2 blog posts in the back end, so now we should see 2 blog posts show up here. And we do. And notice how the images are the same as what we had in our original 2 blog posts from the CMS that we plugged in earlier. One thing that's worth pointing out, though, is that these are rectangular images, whereas on the original template, they were perfect squares. And if we actually inspect these images, these are 110 by 110 dimension images. You can see over here on the actual browser, it's 110 by 110. So that poses a slight problem. We want to have the same sort of visual style here, otherwise it doesn't quite look as good. So one advantage of the image hosting capability on Vertex is that you can crop these images dynamically. It's actually very, very easy to do that. All you have to do here is append the following: equals s 110 for the actual size that you want, and then -c, which will give us a cropped result. So it'll give us a perfect square 110 by 110 image by appending these parameters. So when I reload, here we go. And in terms of dimension, it looks the same as what we had over here. So it has the same, at least the same image dimensions. The preview is a little bit longer, but on the original template, but that's not really a big deal here. So So yeah, that's it. So now that's one very strong advantage of the Vertex sort of ecosystem is you can, when you upload images, it's very easy to crop them and skew and make them bigger and smaller dynamically. So you don't have to upload multiple images for every single individual image for different scenarios. That can get very cumbersome. It's very annoying to set that up over and over again. It takes a lot of time. So okay, so this is now set to go, and now one last thing we want to do is link these titles and these read more links to their appropriate locations, and that is where the slug attribute comes in. So we're going to use a slug to link to every individual blog post, and that's going to be through the URL pattern post/post/ and then the slug. And then there's, I think, two of them, so let's find the next one. The title is the other one, right here. And really the image should be a link as well. So let's go ahead and wrap the image inside of an anchor tag, because that's really what it should be. A lot of people click on images. So now we have the image, the title, and the read more link linking to /post/slug. Now, right now this will crash. Bear in mind, because we did not connect that route. So if I click on it, it will crash. But this URL pattern is what we're going for. So this is now set to go. And we're not going to worry about this. We're actually going to remove this altogether. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. I think what we'll do instead is do an infinite scroll. I think most people at this point expect that. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. Okay, great. And now our data, our blog data is now fetching from the CMS that we set up completely visually, by the way, on the back end. On the CMS, our Vertex CMS, which comes automatically installed by virtue of the portfolio template that we used. One thing, again, that's really worth pointing out here is that you do not need to be a programmer to do any of this part right here. So this tool makes it very easy for developers like myself to work with clients who are non-technical, and they can just update the content on their own while I work on the code over on this side. And it makes life easy on both parties because the client doesn't want to call me for every small little change over and over again. That can be very annoying for both of us, actually. So it's a win-win all around. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to set up that individual blog post page. So when I click on this, we see that, and we're going to set this up as an individual page for the blog post, and we're going to make sure that that also pulls from the CMS accurately and everything is being rendered properly. So, but before we wrap up in this video, let's go ahead and deploy this guy to make sure everything still works. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So let's go ahead and deploy and make sure everything is working on staging the way it does on local. And once we confirm that, we should be good to go. Okay, deployment is done. Here is our staging link. Let's go ahead and hit that staging link again. So here we go. And now we're seeing the blog posts coming from the CMS. So this is very good. And just for good measure, I'm going to add one more blog post right now, just so that we can be sure everything is working as expected. So let's go ahead and add the third one, high performance JavaScript. I'm going to use the lorem ipsum text again, and I would ask that you do the same. Of course, you don't have to, but this makes things a lot easier as far as the formatting is concerned. And let's grab an image for JavaScript from good old Google Images. Here we go. So here I'm deliberately picking one that's not a square image. This is a landscape portrait image, and I'm doing that on purpose just to really take advantage of the capabilities, the cropping capabilities built into Vertex. So let's go ahead and make sure that looks good. And JavaScript, gonna throw that on my desktop. And let's go ahead and add that here. And once that's done, let's go ahead and add this blog post. So create post. And here we have our 3 blog posts now. And when I reload the staging link, just reload that, we now have high performance JavaScript. Now, I noticed it showed up second instead of first. So we can fix that in the next video. That's a minor adjustment. But the main point is that it worked. So here we have the third one, high performance JavaScript, showing up, and everything is properly persisting on the CMS. And once again, notice that we didn't have to create our own custom admin dashboard in order for this to work. And also, just last but not least, I promise this is the last thing I'll do now, is when I run localhost, and I run the project locally once again, you will notice that the project only shows the original 2 blog posts on localhost. That's because it's still referencing the temp data right here. So it's very simple to fix that. We do npm run reset, and this will always clear the temporary data, and then we can just run dev server. There's no need to run a sync command or anything like that. It'll just automatically do it. So when I reload the home page, it'll show all 3 now. And again, we're on localhost this time rather than the staging link. So it's very easy to sync up with staging. It's very easy to do that. And just clear out your temporary on localhost and then rerun, and you should be good to go. So that's it. Hopefully you got all that working. The main takeaway here is that this data is now coming from the CMS from our Vertex project, and that CMS was completely populated through non-programmatically. It's very easy to collaborate with non-programmers if you want to work on these Node-Express projects moving forward. So again, in the next video, we're gonna create the individual blog page, and then that's it. We're gonna start moving on to the content that surrounds it. So the sidebar as well as this newsletter subscription module. So hopefully you got everything working. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.